Today we're going to talk about win totals for certain teams and which direction I would go, over or under, if I were to play those lines. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I do college football videos every single day. Don't forget to check out my friends at Tri-State Wood Sketch. All you have to do is send him a picture, and he'll turn it into a beautiful piece of art on wood. Check out his website at www.tristatewoodsketch.com. Tell him Golden Blue Dude sent you, and you'll get 20% off. My YouTube channel is about to turn 2 years old in September. In the past 2 college football seasons, since I've started this YouTube channel, I've been 70% against the spread, so pretty successful. Today I want to talk about some win totals and which direction I would go in as far as over or under if I were to play those lines. When I'm looking at a win total, I look at the team's schedule and I automatically look at the games that I think they might lose, how confident I am as far as if they're going to win those games or lose those games. The first team is Alabama. Their win total is 11.5. So if you go over, you're pretty much saying that Alabama is going to go undefeated during the regular season. For me, this is a no-brainer. I think Alabama will lose at least one game, so I'm going under 11.5. They could lose to Ole Miss at home. They could lose at Texas A&M. They could lose to LSU at home. There's Arkansas. There's Auburn. I don't think they're going to lose a lot of games, but at least one of those they will lose. That's why I'm going to go under. Next team is Clemson. Their total is also 11.5. So if you go over, you're predicting them to go undefeated as well. I'm going to go under on this as well. I think they could lose that first game against Georgia. That's enough right there for me to go under. They do have a road trip to NC State. Then after their bye week, 2 consecutive road trips to Syracuse and to Pitt. I don't think either one of those teams are going to be elite, but they have given Clemson trouble in the past. So I'm confident at going under 11.5. Next up is Ohio State. Their over-under is 11. I'm going to go under with Ohio State as well. I think they will have 2 losses. Here's their schedule: at Minnesota, Oregon, Tulsa, Akron, at Rutgers, Maryland, and then their bye week. So going into their bye week, they actually could be undefeated. Then at Indiana, that could be a loss. Penn State's a tough one. That one could be a loss. And at the end of the season, a rivalry game against Michigan on the road. I'm not saying Michigan will win that game, but Ohio State's schedule gives me hesitation enough to go under 11 wins. Next up is Oklahoma. Their over-under is 11. For me, this is a wash. I wouldn't touch this either way. I think Oklahoma could go undefeated or could have 1 loss, which would put them at 11-1. The big games I'm looking at Kansas State, because the Wildcats have had Oklahoma's number the past few years. That rivalry game against Texas, you never know what's going to happen there. Iowa State at home. Iowa State's going to be really, really good. Personally, I do think Oklahoma will go undefeated, but I don't like that win total of 11. Next up is Georgia. Their over-under is 10.5. I'm actually going to go over this. Even with that first game against Clemson, it could be a loss. I think Georgia is the more talented team. I think Georgia will win that game. But after that, they get UAB, South Carolina, at Vanderbilt, Arkansas, at Auburn, Kentucky. Then they get their bye week. The rivalry game against Florida in Jacksonville. I'm not really scared about that game for Georgia. I think they win that one comfortably. And then Missouri at Tennessee, Charleston Southern at Georgia Tech. I don't see any losses besides that potential Clemson game. That's why I'm going over that 10.5. The next team I want to talk about is North Carolina. Their over-under is at 10 games. I'm going to go over on this as well. Their very first game is a road game at Virginia Tech, and that is a great atmosphere, but Virginia Tech's not going to be a very good team. Georgia State at home, Virginia at Georgia Tech could be tricky. They get Duke, Florida State at home, Miami at home, at Notre Dame. They could lose that game, but I actually like North Carolina in that game. At Pitt, could be tricky. At NC State. So the worst case scenario for me would be this would be a wash at 10-2. Next team is Coastal Carolina. Their over-under is 10 wins as well. They have Citadel, Kansas, at Buffalo, UMass, UL Monroe, at Arkansas State, at Appalachian State. That one could be tricky. Troy, at Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Texas State, and South Alabama. I think Coastal Carolina could go over 10 wins, but for me, I'm going to say it's a wash. I think Coastal Carolina will end the season with exactly 10 wins. Next up is Cincinnati. Their over-under is at 10 wins as well. This one's really, really close. First, they get Miami of Ohio, Murray State at Indiana. That will be a tough road test, but I think Cincinnati has the talent to win that game. Then a bye week, then another road trip to Notre Dame. That one's going to be a little bit more difficult. After that, they get Temple, UCF at home, at Navy, at Tulane, Tulsa, South Florida, SMU, and East Carolina. So worst case scenario for me would be Cincinnati going 10-2. Personally, I think Cincinnati will go undefeated. But even if they go 11-1, that's still over the 10. That's why I'm taking the over. Next up, Miami, Florida. Their over-under is 9.5. Here's their games. That first game against Alabama, I think that's a loss right off the bat. So there you go, one loss. Appalachian State, Michigan State, Central Connecticut State, Virginia, then the bye week at North Carolina. That's another loss. NC State, that could be another loss. NC State's going to be tough. At Pitt, tricky. Georgia Tech, at Florida State, rivalry game. Florida State will be much better. Virginia Tech, and at Duke. So yeah, there's enough question marks to where I would actually take the under for Miami. I think Miami goes in the neighborhood of 9-3, but that's still under the 9.5. Another 9.5 win over under team is Texas A&M. Here's their schedule. Kent State, at Colorado, New Mexico, Arkansas, in Arlington, Texas. That's going to be a tougher game than they realize. After that, they have Mississippi State, Alabama. It is at home, but Alabama's Alabama. And they get at Missouri. I think Missouri is going to be a much improved team this year. That's going to be a very tough road test for Texas A&M. After that, South Carolina at home, then the bye week, then Auburn, then a really tough road test at Ole Miss, Prairie View A&M, and then they end the season at LSU. There's way too many tough games for me to take the over on this. I think Texas A&M could actually end up going either 8-4 or 9-3. Either way, that's under that 9.5. I would take the under. Next up is Iowa State. Their over-under is 9.5. That's a joke. I will easily take the over. Iowa State's going to be an incredibly talented team this year. They start off the season with Northern Iowa, but it's at home, at UNLV, at Baylor, Kansas, bye week, at Kansas State, could be tough. Oklahoma State at home, at West Virginia, that is a tough road game. Texas, those last two games though, at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma. So 3 of their last 4 games are on the road. That is a tough road slate to end the season, but I think Iowa State is a 10-win team easily. I'm taking that over. Also, Wisconsin at 9.5 for the over-under. I think that's a joke as well. I'm going to take the over on that. Here's their schedule. Penn State, but at home. I think that's a win. Eastern Michigan, then their bye week. And they get Notre Dame in Chicago. I think they win that game. Michigan, at Illinois. Army, at Purdue maybe. They get Iowa at home, then at Rutgers, Northwestern, Nebraska, at Minnesota. Yeah, I do not see any more than 2 losses on their schedule. This is an easy pick for me. Take the over on Wisconsin. 2 more teams, guys. First up, Iowa, 8.5. Here's a look at their schedule. They get Indiana at home. Tough team at home. I'm taking Iowa. Then at Iowa State, I do think they drop that game. Kent State at home. At Colorado State. At Maryland. Penn State, but at home. Then they get Purdue. Bye week at Wisconsin. That will be a loss. At Northwestern, that's going to be a win. Northwestern is not going to be the team they were last year. Then they get Minnesota and Illinois at home. Then they finish off the season at Nebraska. Yeah, there's no way that Iowa has more than 3 losses. I'm taking the over on the 8.5. The last team I'm going to talk about in this particular video is, well, I'm a West Virginia fan, so why not West Virginia, right? Their over-under is 6.5. That is laughable, guys. I'm going to take that to the bank and go over all day long. I mean, if you took the under on this, you're saying not only is West Virginia not going to improve from last year, but they're going to go backwards. That just doesn't happen under Neil Brown, even in his days at Troy. Here's their schedule. At Maryland. Might be tough, but I think it's a win. And they get Long Island, Virginia Tech at home. Virginia Tech is a rivalry, but it's in Morgantown. I'm going to try to actually be at that game. I'm confident in saying that's a win. At Oklahoma. That's a definite loss. Then we get Texas Tech at home. At Baylor. Then the bye week. At TCU. That is a possible loss. Iowa State at home. I'm calling that a loss as well. That's 3 losses. Then we get Oklahoma State at home. I think we beat Oklahoma State at home pretty comfortably. At Kansas State. That's a possible loss. So I'm gonna put it on there. That's 4. Then we get Texas at home. That's a win. And then at Kansas. So even with me giving West Virginia losses on the road to TCU and to Kansas State, that's only 4 losses. That's still above 6.5. And I think West Virginia will beat one of those 2 teams. So I'm very confident and very comfortable in picking the over at 6.5. To be honest with you, I was a little surprised. I thought maybe 7.5 was going to be where they would go. Where would you go? Over, under for these particular teams? That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.